I just wanted to briefly lay the groundwork for the conversation we're going to have in this colloquy about the Increasing American Jobs Through Greater Exports to Africa Act of 2012, of which Senator Durbin is the lead sponsor, and Senators Boozman and I have joined him as original sponsors. The core question is, what is it about the rapid growth in Africa and the economic opportunity in Africa that should concern Americans, that should concern our constituents at home, and that should occupy our time and attention? Well, back on November 1st of last year, the African Affairs Subcommittee of the Foreign Relations Committee delved into this, and Senator Durbin, Senator Isaacson, and I looked hard at the ongoing developments in Africa. And as this first chart suggests, there's been a dramatic change in the amount of exports from China to Africa relative to the exports from the United States to Africa. In fact, since 2000, Chinese exports to Africa have outgrown U.S. exports to Africa by a more than 3-to-1 ratio. Well, why does that matter? Why does it matter if American workers, American companies are losing out on a continent that I think many Americans view as having relatively modest opportunity? Frankly, Africa is a continent of enormous opportunity. In fact, out of the 10 fastest growing economies in the last decade, 6 of them were in sub-Saharan Africa. That's not a widely known fact. And so part of why I lay this groundwork to start this colloquy is to help folks who are watching at home, to help our colleagues understand why Senator Durbin has taken the lead in making sure that we focus America's efforts on strengthening our exports to Africa, a continent of enormous opportunity. Senator Durbin?
From Delaware, that the Commerce Department estimates that we can create jobs here in America, capitalizing on the opportunities in Africa. And that's a good starting point in the midst of recession, to know that in Delaware and Arkansas and Pennsylvania and Illinois, there are jobs to be created, good-paying jobs right here at home, taking advantage of these export markets. In the past 10 years, 6 of the world's 10 fastest-growing economies were located in sub-Saharan Africa. And in the next 5 years, it's expected that 7 of the world's 10 fastest-growing economies will be in sub-Saharan Africa. The bill which we're bringing here is an effort to focus America's export market on this great continent and this great opportunity, creating jobs at home and a better working relationship with the countries and leaders of Africa.
The name of the game right now is jobs, 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 and exports means jobs. As you go to these African countries, they want American products, whether it's the newest country, I guess, in Africa, South Sudan, or the older countries, and we need to have the ability to supply them.
There is a real challenge for the United States in the field of opportunity, which is Africa, and it's not just an economic challenge. We face competition from China, from Russia, from Brazil, from India, from other emerging and rapidly growing countries, but there's also a values challenge because, frankly, in countries I've visited, and I know both of you in your service to the public in the House and here in the Senate have visited more countries on the continent than I have, but I'm concerned that China's agenda in Africa is sometimes different from ours. It's not a values agenda. They're not there to promote democracy, tolerance, transparency, protection of intellectual property from piracy and counterfeiting. There's lots of different things that we advance in partnership with trade opportunities that aren't part of their issues and aren't part of what they try to advance. I'm impressed that Senator Durbin has pulled together an all-of-government strategy for dealing with this opportunity, and I'd be interested, Senator Durbin, in hearing more about the mechanics of how this bill will actually work to deploy all the different resources of the U.S. government.
I thank the senator from Delaware. This develops a comprehensive strategy to coordinate the agencies of our government in helping U.S. businesses export to Africa. Currently, U.S. export promotion and financing regime is a patchwork of overlapping, loosely coordinated, and maybe in some cases wasteful efforts that are difficult for U.S. businesses to navigate, too often unresponsive to the real needs of real business. This bill creates a special Africa export strategy coordinator to ensure this is no longer the case. He'll work with the existing export agencies and make sure they're on the same page. The bill establishes a minimum number of commercial foreign service officers to be stationed at U.S. embassies in Africa and multilateral investment banks. These are the men and women who are contacted by American businesses wanting to do business. They can navigate them through local government requirements as well as some of the other cultural challenges that they might face. The bill formalizes and standardizes the training received by economic and commercial officers It also incrementally increases the amount of money that EXIM can loan over the next 10 years and creates a standard of accountability for those loans. Remember, this is only an increase in the lending limit, and these loans actually make money for the U.S. Treasury. Lastly, the legislation gives the Export-Import Bank a greater incentive to aggressively counter concessional loans, below-market loans, like the one I mentioned earlier in the case of Ethiopia and China, that countries such as China often use to undercut our bidding in the process.
I appreciate the way that the legislation was crafted in the sense it's revenue neutral. There's no cost to the taxpayer. What we're trying to do is get a plan together to make it such, particularly our small businesses, so that they can compete with this huge continent that has so much going for it.
And I'm grateful that you've been an active participant in helping pull together on this bill. Both of our states are well known for our poultry exports. All three of our states also have manufacturing exports across all the different sectors of our economy. We can't help but do better if we increase our exports to Africa. 50 years ago, roughly 70% of all U.S. funds that flowed towards Africa were development or relief assistance from U.S. government sources. Today, that's inverted. In fact, more than 80% of all U.S. dollars that flow to Africa are direct investment by the private sector. So, Senator Durbin, you've led the effort to create a wise bill, a smart bill that uses that leverage, that makes, as Senator Boozman says, the rapidly growing markets of Africa accessible to our home state businesses, large and small.
As the potential increases, as the continent has settled down, as they're developing a middle class, 60% of the businesses that do exports are small businesses, and certainly we need to get in there. And with this bill, challenge us to increase by 200%. With this bill, it gives us the incentive. It gives us a template for how we do that, and then so that we can stop this erosion by the Chinese, where they're outdoing us by about 3 to 1 right now.
When America leads with its values, America will find success both for our workers, our families, our communities at home in terms of increased export opportunities, but also in terms of higher regard for our values, for our priorities throughout the world. When we are willing to take on the challenge of combating terrible diseases like HIV, AIDS, tuberculosis, and malaria in partnership with research universities, in partnership with African universities and doctors and healthcare professionals, we can achieve remarkable results. But when we do, as Senator Durbin's leadership points us in the direction of doing with this bill, when we pull together all of our government, OPIC, EXIM, the Trade and Development Administration, the Department of Commerce, the Department of State, and we really deploy the strength and the capabilities of America's entrepreneurs and small businesses, the sky's the limit in terms of the difference we can make for the people of Africa and the people of the United States. Senator Durbin, thank you so much for your leadership on this important bill, and I've been grateful for a chance to join this colloquy with both of you today.